Podcast Network Asia.
Welcome to She Talks Peace, a podcast that highlights the role of women peace builders around the world in bringing lasting peace and security to communities. Eavesdrop on their communities and get to know their stories. From the Philippines to Malaysia, from Indonesia to Palestine, from Myanmar to the United States. Their dreams and hopes for a world without violence and a world where every woman and girl can be whoever she wants to be. Hosted by Amina Rasul Bernardo, President of the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy. This is She Talks Peace.
Salam, salam, dear listeners. This is Amina Rasul of the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy greeting you from Manila. It's getting cooler in the Philippines. It's late November. Christmas is coming up. And you know what? The Philippines is a fantastic place to visit in December. Did you know that the Philippines has the longest Christmas season, I think, in the world? When the month ends in R, so that means September, you already hear carols on the air and the malls start fixing up the lighting and putting up Christmas decorations. So come and visit us in the Philippines this December. But anyway, a few weeks ago, October 30, in the Philippines, we held the Sangguniang Kabataan Elections. The Sangguniang Kabataan, Sanggunian is Filipino for council, Kabataan is Filipino for youth, and we actually elect youth representatives here in the Philippines at the village level, and they represent young people at the village council. So they're local government officials. The Sangguniang Kabataan, they're supposed to make sure that the aspirations of youth, the needs of youth, are answered by the adult councils. Now, what even makes it more interesting, after the village councils are elected, so there's one chair and he's got council members, all of the chairs of the Sangguniang Kabataan, they elect a representative at the town level or the city level, and that elected person becomes a member of the adult council, town council, or city council. And then they gather and they elect a representative who becomes the representative at the provincial board level. And not content with that, our law requires that all of these chairs will elect a national representative, a national president, and that person sits in the National Youth Commission as an ex officio commissioner to represent all of the elected young people all over the country. So this much awaited election means there's going to be a lot of changes in representation at the town, city, village, provincial councils, and in the National Youth Commission as well. Now, I'm mentioning the National Youth Commission to you because I have a really exciting guest today who used to be one of the commissioners in the National Youth Commission. And I'm very sure that when he was at the National Youth Commission, he also looked at the Sangguniang Kabataan and probably looked at how the roles of young people in these elected councils could really be improved, given a little bit more direction so that these young elected leaders can really contribute to the skills development of young people, to possibility of employment, and more important, to actually participating in the decision-making process of government. So for this episode, my dear friends, my very special guest, I am sure that all Filipinos are very familiar with him. He is a very strong advocate for the youth. His name is Jose Sixto G. Dantes III, but all Filipinos know him as Dingdong. He is one of the Philippines' most versatile and accomplished artists, boasting a career spanning over 3 decades, from modeling and performing to hosting, acting, would you believe, directing, and producing films through his own studio, Agosto Dos Pictures. Ding Dong's multifaceted talents have left an indelible mark on the entertainment industry. I was just browsing his name and I came across a list of awards that he's won for Best Actor, for Director. I mean, he's done so much, but beyond the limelight, Ding Dong is, would you believe, a major in the Philippine Marine Corps. Serving as a reservist in the Philippine Navy. Now, I wonder what made him do that. He is also the founder and chair of the Yes Pinoy Foundation, dedicated to empowering Filipinos, fostering responsible citizen participation, and promoting resilience. Having served as commissioner of the National Youth Commission, Ding Dong focused on crucial areas such as education, climate action, and disaster resilience. He is also an advocate of social entrepreneurship and a known nation builder. In fact, this previous election, he actually came up with a really nice video, quite heartwarming, really. It happened to be Mother's Day, and he spoke so warmly about the role of a mother, the role of his mother, the role of his wife in nurturing, children, the strength of mothers in the rural areas who, even if they had nothing, would make sure that the children safe, they're fed, they're protected. And he said, as a father of children and as a husband, he supports the strength of mothers. And because he values the role of mothers, it would show in his vote. He would vote so that he could help the community find leaders who would support mothers. Can you imagine that? So, welcome to She Talks Peace, Commissioner Dingdong Dantes.
Hello. Good evening, Mama Amina, Chair Amina. Magandang gabi. Good evening to all the listeners and everyone watching in this podcast. I'm so happy to be here, Mama Amina. I just want to say that when we saw each other
at the airport,
a couple of weeks back or months back, sobrang na-excited ko kasi po nagkaroon po ng mukha yung pangalan na parati ko pong naririnig magmula noon. I don't know po if you recall Gerald Ortiz, one of my mentors. Parati po niya kayong kinikwento sa akin na kayo po mismo, Ma'am Amina, nagtaguyod ng National Youth Commission. And when I met you finally during that event in the airport, sabi ko, sobrang saya ko po. And I'm so happy to see you again, ma'am.
So am I, Commissioner Dingdong. I haven't seen Gerald in such a long time, and I think it's time to get together again and find out what he's trying to do for young people. But anyway, Dingdong, the elections, the SK elections just passed. Do you think that young Filipinos are still engaged? I have this feeling sometimes that, our young people seem to live in a virtual world of their own. And I'm wondering, can we really get them to engage and help our government make the right decisions?
Ma'am, the answer is definitely yes. I think the spirit of wanting to participate in nation building has always been there. I think it is still very, very much alive right now. Considering the turnout of the people and the young people interested in this position, especially in the past elections. And I'm just happy to see that right now there are more platforms wherein they are able to showcase and exemplify their vision, their platform, so to speak. in general, in order to contribute to nation building. Just to give a brief context, ma'am, I just want to also share how important this is to me, because during my time when I was commissioner in the
Yes.
National Commission, we were assigned to oversee the IRR of the SK reform bill.
Oh, yes.
Before that, it was really very, very controversial kasi after its abolition, marami pong nagsasabi na hindi naman kailangan yan. Yan yung nagiging avenue for young people to become corrupt or early
Yes.
in their careers, in their leadership careers. Pero ako po personally, naniniwala po ako na hindi po talaga pwedeng mawala yun kasi hindi po pwedeng mawala ang representation, lalong-lalo ng kabataan pagdating sa decision making, and especially sa governance pagdating po sa community level, di ba po? Nabanggit nyo nga kanina, umaakit nga po yung roles nila. Di lang po sa barangay, umaakit po yan sa provincial level, sa city level, even at the national level. And I think it's really very, very important. That's why thanks to our lawmakers who pushed for it during that time, and we really pushed for the very, very crucial implementing rules and regulations at that time. And not to mention everything, but I want to talk about one very, very specific provision which we really zeroed in, and that's about provision of the participation, especially for climate action and disaster.
Yes.
Opo. So masaya po kami na napasama po yun, because to give you also a quick background, when the SK law wasn't passed yet, we were pushing for youth participation in all levels of governance, especially at least at the barangay level. We were passing resolutions wherein dapat meron po kahit isang youth representative na nakaupo sa disaster council, para kapag nagkaroon ng kahit anumang sakuna, represented po yung kabataan, kasi naniniwala po kami na mahalagang role po ng ating kabataan dating po dito sa mga ganitong usapin. Maybe not only for their physical contribution, but maybe more for the ideas, maybe more for the ideas and the creative executions that they may contribute, especially with their proficiency sa social media, especially at that time. So yun po, nakakatuwa lang po na while pushing for that on all levels, on the side, nagkataon po na naipasa rin po yung SK reform bill, which is what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah. You know what, Dingdong? More than 20 years ago, when I was still organizing the National Youth Commission, I was invited to speak at the UN General Assembly because it was the 10th anniversary of the International Youth Year. And I mentioned about the Sangguniang Kabataan, how in the Philippines, young people actually have share of power. Because, dear listeners, our youth councils, do you know that they have a share of the budget of government? So they actually have the money to implement projects that will serve the needs of their community, of the youth in their community. And at the UN, I mentioned how this is probably the only country in the world that has elected youth councils with real power. And I'm really glad, Dingdong, that you had a chance in really pushing for the SK reform, because you're right. The corruption, even during my time as chair of the National Youth Commission, when we'd hear about the corruption that actually already infiltrated the youth council, yung mga SK natin, that was really so discouraging. But, we have a law. So, okay, you're reforming the SKs. But do you really think that we can kind of neutralize and change the environment that has been years and years in the making? May kwan pa ba yan? Can we turn time back, Dingdong?
Hi. Well, if our basis right now is the reformed SK law, I really believe in it. Kasi I think there were enough safeguards put into place so that yung mga kabataan po natin ay hindi po, ayoko nga po sabihin umabuso pero maabuso kasi maaaring hindi na naman po sila yung umaabuso dahil marami pong external forces din. So, with regards to the spirit of the law, I really believe it. And siyempre, sa lahat naman po talaga ay nasa implementation and nasa monitoring. And I think it really needs a whole-of-nation approach to monitor this. So as long as we support youth participation and youth in governance so that hindi lang ma-disenfranchise po ang mga kabataan na napakarami pong kabataan natin may potential. Naniniwala po ako na meron po talaga siyang magandang pupuntahan. At kapag na-address din yung mga dati pong pain points at dating problema nung nakaraan, yun naman po yung mahalaga.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Tapos if you're talking about yung push mo, and I think you succeeded because now yung mga local councils have actually passed legislation, local legislation that allows a young person to sit in the DRRM councils, right? And that's really great because, Dingdong, every time there's a disaster because of, climate change is really affecting us already. But women and children are the ones who are most affected every time there's a disaster. So it's really a great idea to have a young person on the councils. What would their role be? What can they do when they sit in the DRRM councils?
Before the SK, kasi po, nung wala pa pong SK, yun po yung vacuum. Yun yung may kakulangan na wala pong umuupo na kabataan doon sa council. That's why we were advocating for that because we believe that, number one, just for representation, I think the young people could give a different perspective with regards to what's really happening on the ground, with regards to the issues that affect them. When we talk about food security, when we talk about their needs,
right.
You mentioned women and children. Tama po yun. Naniniwala po ako, most vulnerable po ang women and children, lalong po pagdating ng ganyan po mga sakuna. And it's always good to have that fresh perspective when it comes to decision making, and the fact that they're part of that also empowers them to participate in whatever efforts the community has. Pagdating po man, sabihin po man natin sa relief, pagdating po man sa rescue, kung ano po man, pero lalong-lalo na po sa communication, sa palagay ko. Dahil alam naman po natin ngayon, talagang very much active ang ating mga kabataan at young people pagdating po sa social media. Even I am still surprised up to this day with regards to how technology is evolving. And during that time, my youngest sister was even the one informing me of these developments. At the time, I was in my mid-30s. Sabi ko, may ganun pala, hindi ko alam. She was not even 20 back then. And then she was lecturing me, Kuya, ganito yan, ito. Okay. Sorry, hindi ko alam. Not that we don't know, but the fact that technology evolves so fast, sila po yung nasa onset parate, to catch these trends and to catch these tools that we can use. And I think that's where the young people play a very, very important and vital role with regards to contributing. I don't even want to say decision making po muna, but I always want to use the word contribute because the fact that you were asked, the fact that you're there, malaking bagay na po yun. Kasi pag sinabing, ano ang take ng kabataan natin dito? Check, okay tayo dito. So yun na po, malaking bagay na po yun sa decision ng isang governance structure in general.
Yeah. With regards to that area, number one, the Philippines seems to be one of the most active, if not the most active, in social media. Totoo ba yun? TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. In fact, I think in some countries, there are some groups that are upset with Filipinos because we can be trollers. And, in some circles, we have this reputation we might be ganging up on somebody that, that the community doesn't like. But this brings me to the other point. The Philippines has a big population of young people, and our young people, like you said, are very savvy in technology. They're the ones who are really driving our engagement in social media. But Ding Dong, sometimes I worry that our government doesn't really have guardrails, and the young people get sucked into areas that endangers them. Classic, because I'm from Muslim Mindanao, and we worry about recruitment online, especially the recruitment of young people and young women by violent extremist groups.
Yes.
And it looks like the extremist groups, they really know how to target the young people, how to hook them. And the problem is our government seems to be clueless in doing something about it. So that's one area that affects young people from my part of the world. In the rest of the country, this idea about young people getting sucked into pornography and other areas, and before you know it, they get really sucked into the rabbit hole. And I cannot see our national government doing something that can protect our young people. When you were in the National Youth Commission, were they already talking about what to do to at least protect our young people from these predators and extremists who try to recruit them online?
During the time when I was there, ma'am, it was around 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Iba pa po yung issue nun. Dahil
Yeah.
sa sobra po talagang bilis ng development ng technology,
Oh, yes.
iba po talaga yung mga nagiging usapin nun. In fact, one of the top issues during that time was teenage pregnancy. Drugs, of course, nandyan po yan. Pero parang pagbibigay po ako ng halimbawa, I think depende rin po sa circumstance at sa turn of events with regards to what's happening around. Just a few months in, when I was commissioner, my focus then was education. But then at that time, pumasok na po yung mga malalaking bagyo sa atin, and then we shifted focus immediately. We were agile enough to shift the focus, even if it was part of the Philippine Youth National Plan na ito, budget naka-allot dito, pero ito yung pangangailangan ng time na yun. But then we were fast enough to shift the focus to climate resilience and disaster preparedness. So my point is, nagbabago po siya from time to time.
Right.
And right now, you are right. The online presence is really very, very strong. And if the question is, do we have enough safeguards? Personally, I would like to believe that there are very, very good people in government that are thinking of these safeguards right now. In fact, I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and the speaker was Mark Zuckerberg himself talking to Andrew Huberman. And he said that talagang, by design, okay, meron po talaga mga algorithm pagdating sa mga ganito. And even these tech companies are trying their best to put on these safeguards. Sila na po ang nag-originate na po sa kanila itong mga platforms na to. At kahit sila, nagugulat sila sa kabilisan ng pag-evolve nitong mga issues natin na ito. Do they have enough safeguards? I'm not really sure. But like in our home, we make sure to practice that. Even if we say that, let's say YouTube or TikTok has a feature wherein children cannot watch this certain content.
That's right, yeah.
Wala po kami, bilang magulang, hindi po tayo sure. Kung for some reason ay pumasok yun sa screens nila, wala po tayong control doon. Absolute control. But what we have control over is that, we can educate our children among our ranks. Na ito talaga yung values natin. Siguraduhin nyo na kapag may ganito kayong ma-encounter, make sure that, this is something that we don't like. So, I think, bukod lang po sa government safeguards, mahalaga rin po ang safeguard na iniiwan natin sa ating mga tahanan. Kaya mahalaga pa rin po talaga yung ating values as a family, yung values as a community. If we believe that not everything is based online, mas magkakaroon po tayo ng kanya-kanyang roles in strengthening that guard, kumbaga, sa mga unwanted situations, especially if we have let's say mga kaibigan, di ba, yung mga taong nagpapaalala parati, pero mahalaga po ang role ng mga magulang, lalong-lalo na po sa mga tahanan, to really set these values, to set these safeguards and structures na ito yung mga talaga dapat iniiwasan at binabantayan natin. But again, to go back to my answer kanina with regards to what governments do, I sincerely hope and believe that we have good people in government who are working hard to have these safeguards. Maybe because of bureaucracy, maybe because of siguro baka it takes time, baka lang hindi maka-keep up masyado, pero kailangan po talaga natin yan. In fact, I just read an article, final point po, just before this, wherein there's a proposal to expand the mandate of the MTRCB. Even go into screening online content. I don't know where that is right now in terms of policy and in terms of, I don't know if it's going to be an executive play or maybe a public act later on. Pero the fact that there is a conversation about it gives us a good signal that, okay, napag-uusapan na ngayon. And I think kailangan po talagang mapag-usapan at least.
All that thought, Dingdong, because we need to talk a little bit more about the role of the movie industry and the fact that our government has too many old people, not enough young ones, because old people don't understand social media, like me, for instance. But before we go into that, dear listeners, I hope you're enjoying this conversation as much as I am. And just in case you have any questions, comments for Dingdong Dantes or ideas, suggestions, do email us. Send in your thoughts to our email address, shetalkspeacepodcast@gmail.com, or our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts at She Talks Peace. Don't forget to give us a follow. Now, back to Dingdong Dantes. I'm really glad you talked about the role of the MTRCB because unlike, I think, other countries, the MTRCB actually has a guideline, right, to protect values of family. So there are some safeguards that have been placed by our government through the movie and television review board. How do you think the MTRCB can actually help in monitoring? Because that's going to require a lot of resources, Dingdong. Does the MTRCB have that kind of resource to help monitor social media content?
Exactly, ma'am. This is my personal take on this whole issue. The industry per se is so big. It is huge. That enforcing that is just one part of it. Monitoring is just one part of it. But there are also many aspects to it that should be talked about with regards to the development of the whole industry. Because when we talk about the enforcement of these safeguards, syempre, we also have to talk about how to develop the industry as a whole. Kasi right now, ma'am, the industry has many different agencies governing our craft. There's the MTRCB, there is the FDCP, etc. So, parang naiisip ko lang po, and I envision, what if there's just one singular government entity or government body which monitors, which governs everything that has to do with the industry. And then it becomes stronger with regards to development, with regards to enforcement, and also with regards to all the things that are related to that. Kasi on its own, it's really going to be a challenge. Kasi po, sa mga movie producers, halimbawa po ma'am, yung mga movie producers po natin, dahil wala na pong masyadong nanunood at pumupunta sa mga sinihan. Kumukonti na po yung nagpo-produce. Therefore, kumukonti na rin po yung mga nagkakaroon ng trabaho. Although we're grateful that we still have our networks, our TV networks who really supply jobs especially for television. I am a product of GMA Network. Proud to say that I'm a kapuso.
You're kapuso.
So I've been with them for over 20 years. And grabe po yung natulong nila sa akin as an artist sa buong buhay ko. But of course, moving forward, marami pa pong ibang platforms eh. To be specific, yung mga pelikula po natin, I think they really need tax breaks. Ang dami pong mga kailangan. So the point is, kung marami po moving parts, kanya-kanya po yung galaw at kanya-kanya po yung request. Ito po yung kailangan namin. The workers also have issues. Kailangan po ng workers ng ganitong protection, etc. But with one singular, strong umbrella agency that governs everything, I think it's going to be more effective. And that's my personal take. And when we talk about enforcement, mas mapag-uusapan kasi mas centralized na po lahat ng interests. When we talk about development, nandyan na po lahat ng stakeholders, present na po lahat ng stakeholders in one council. When we talk about anything that is related to that, nandun na po lahat. Hindi na po natin kailangan hagilapin kung saan-saan. But I also want to give a shout out, and I really respect of course the ones who are handling it right now, because alam ko pong mahirap po yung trabaho nila. Alam ko, nagtrabaho rin po ako sa gobyerno for quite some time, and minsan the idea is, and the idea, the spirit and intention is always there. The problem really is in the execution, because we have to go through so many layers and so many levels of bureaucracy. And sana, ito yung mga bagay na pwede nating mabawasan para mas mabilis po ang implementation at progress. But of course, without taking away the safeguards, of course, ng mga klase pong mga panukala and the policies and movements.
Yeah. Earlier I was just saying that I think one of the problems we have is the fact that government is really dominated by old people. Old people who are not in tune with the fast pace of technology, with the problems that come up because of the fast pace of technology. So they're sort of divorced from the aspirations and the ideas of young people. Classic case. Let's look at the United States, right? The two leading contenders for running for president. For the Democrats, Joe Biden, who's like over 80 years old. And then you've got Trump, who will be 80 very, very soon. So two really old people. And what has happened in the United States, if you see it, young people are coming up quite angry about the way government is being run, because they don't see it as really responding to what they need. And, in the Philippines, at least President Bongbong Marcos is younger than President Duterte. So I'm hoping that his attitude is different, and it looks like it is different from the former president. But I worry that young people look at government and see something divorced from them. And if young people are not participating in decision making by government, they're not really acting like good citizens, then you're going to have a problem within the society, because your government is going to do what government always does, which is really to make sure that government stays stable. But then the problems of the majority, which are young, are going to remain unaddressed. So the Sangguniang Kabataan and the National Youth Commission in this particular situation, they really play a critical part. But Dingdong, I know you're very optimistic about this, but when I look at how young people are reacting to certain critical issues, I don't see the engagement. So I wanted to ask you, because I know the movie industry is tremendously influential in shaping attitudes, in engaging people, and a lot of young people are still very much into movies. What can actors and directors like you, what can the movie industry really do to get young people out of their shell and back into, making their governments work, work for them. Ang problema ko kasi sometimes, when you talk about advocacy in movies, it doesn't really make money. Is there any way, for instance, that the movie industry can encourage indie films and make that popular? Is that possible, Ding Dong?
Yes, I think it is still possible. If the goal is really to engage and set that fire for young people to participate in governance and nation building, I think that there are many ways. But you mentioned a very, very important platform, which is media. I want to say media in general.
Yes.
Because movies is just one part of it, ma'am. Right now, I'm seeing media as a whole. Kasama na po ang television, kasama na po ang tablado, kasama na rin po ang social media. Kasi dati, pag sinabi mong media, try media, TV, radio, and print ad. Ngayon, multi na po talaga. Wala ng print. Napakarami na po. Definitely our hope is for the young people to engage in all levels as inspired by these platforms. Sa pelikula po, I always regard us and us actors as the nation's storytellers. So we tell the stories of what's really happening about us, what's happening to our nation, given the present context. Regardless po kung period po yan. Kasi kung gagawa ka ng kwento, gusto mo makarelate yung tao ngayon. Hindi yung makarelate yung tao for 50 years. Maybe may mensahe, pero yung mensahe na yun ay timeless. And when we talk about timeless messages, these are mostly messages about values, di ba? Which should be at the core of all people. So, kung gumagawa po ng pelikula, ako personally, I cannot answer for everyone. Yung mga pinipili ko pong pelikula ay yung mga meron talagang sinasabi tungkol sa kasalukuyan. May sinasabi tungkol sa lipunan, and it hopefully could serve as an eye-opener to the viewers, to the audience, kung ano ang take nila dito. Not necessarily to spoon-feed what we want to say, pero ito yung scenario. So what do you think about it? Most importantly, it should spark an interest and a call to action after watching it. That's why I really find documentaries very powerful. I find social media influeencers very powerful. Television is very, very powerful because ito po yung mga platform na libre na napapanood natin. In Facebook, kahit walang data, napapanood niyo po yan.
Yeah.
Kahit wala po kayong internet. And it's a very, very powerful tool and platform because ito po yung pwedeng gamitin to send across positive messages about these things. Kaya nalulungkot ako kapag ginagamit siya for the wrong reasons.
Right.
Kaya mahalaga po talaga na ma-incorporate natin yung gusto nating sabihin whenever we want to put out something in social media, not just for the likes, not just for the monetary returns, but ultimately for what it can do to your children, what it can do to your community, and what it can do to your country. So sana po, parati, yun yung nasa utak. Although, sometimes guilty tayo because it can also be a space for us to just express.
That's
Pero
true.
minsan kasi, it can go towards so many, parang ways and so many other emotions that can also be very, very dangerous and sometimes also insightful. Kaya sana gusto natin talagang responsableng paggamit ng mga platforms na ito. Kaya nga po ang pelikula very meticulously done because don't just broadcast a story using one finger and one click. It is edited. It is performed. Many other artists are involved in bringing to life a story. So kaya very, 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 very important po ang role ng isang storyteller with regards to a platform, whether it be in the movie industry or television or social media or radio,
right,
and Spotify, like this one, ma'am, where you're having this conversation. So napakahalaga po talaga.
Oh, by the way, Ding Dong, talking about actors and the industry as storytellers, I want to find out more about the story behind that really great video that you prepared on Mother's Day that coincided with the election season. So what was the story there? Oh, by the way, listeners, go on YouTube and just type in Dingdong Dantes Mother's Day video and you'll see what I mean. So what's the story there, Ding Dong? Why did you feel compelled to make that video, that message?
I may not be able to talk about the real context of
Okay.
but I can talk about my feelings and maybe my position during that time. Number one, meron po ako talagang empathy pagdating syempre sa ating mga nanay, sa role ng mga nanay. Meron po akong recognition pagdating sa role. Yung totoong context po nun ay yung role ng mga magulang, sa totoo lang, sa pagtaguyod ng isang tahanan. And at that time, because it was Mother's Day, I really wanted to highlight the role of mothers, the role of my mother, the role of my wife in building the family. I think by sending that message, it could also relate to a bigger community or a bigger scenario or context. And that's one. It was really rooted from compassion. Compassion po sa babae, kababaihan, yung aking nanay, yung asawa sa buhay ko. Rooted sa empathy din ng ating mga, in a way, ating mga kababayan. Pero anyway, yun yung takeaway ng iba. But ang kinailangan kong ma-insert po doon ay yung creativity on how to send message. Whether outright diretsahan or through a poem or a narrative. I'm so happy to say that before that I discussed this amongst friends. Sabi ko, ano ba yung issues natin? How do we want to celebrate Mother's Day? Especially in the context of the coming national elections. And because of the creativity of yung lumabas sa puso namin, especially puso ko, ito yung lumabas. But more importantly, it was the commitment to stick to these values. Na para sa akin, I stand by these values, and I think, especially during that time, na ito ang aking take dito sa mga nangyayari dito. So, yun. Pero ang totoong kwento dyan, marami pa. Pero yun lang po yung sabihin sa oras na ito.
We'll have a private discussion about that. But it was really a remarkable and heartwarming message. And I think it may have actually touched some of those or many of those who saw the video to make the right decision during the election. But anyway, Dingdong Dantes, before we end our show with you, we have a lot of listeners and we have got a good number who are teenagers and a lot of young professionals. What would be your message to our listeners, Ding Dong? What is your message for the young and the need for them to help make a better world?
Number one, always have compassion. Always have compassion towards people, towards your fellow human beings. Kahit gaano kasi tayo kagaling minsan, hindi dapat mawala yung empathy natin patungo sa ating mga kapwa, sa ating mga kapatid, sa ating mga kaibigan, kapamilya, kapuso, hindi po pwedeng mawala yan. And ako nararamdaman ko po ito na parang mas magaling po talaga yung mga kabataan ngayon kaysa sa atin. Di ba? So sana gamitin po nila yung kagalingan nila yon, gamitin nila yung kanilang creativity to solve the problems of the world. Because every minute there will be a new emerging problem. And I think this is where your creativity will play a very, very huge role. Dito papasok yan. Because since you're agile, you are very, very proactive, your creativity will definitely play an important and vital role into solving problems, not just of your home, not just of your community, but maybe also of your nation. And finally, you should always commit to these. Kasi sometimes, learning ko po ito nung nagsisimula po ako, minsan may mga panahon na, okay, let's do this because it's cool. Let's do this because it is easy, or it is advantageous, or maybe because it's going to make me look good. But the truth is, a one-time engagement will really make not much of a difference. It really needs your commitment into a way of life that is greater than yourself. So, kumbaga, hindi po siya one-time thing eh. Kailangan yung commitment mo into doing these things are there. Kailangan talagang game ako dito. Mas malaki itong mission ko sa mundong ito, mas malaki pa sa akin. Kaya yung aking compassion sa aking kapwa, yung aking creativity sa pag-solve ng problems ay i-commit ko para makakontribute ako ng mas maayos sa aking lipunan. Therefore, making you a responsible citizen, which is what we need. Especially right now, kailangan po natin ng maraming ganito. Lalong-lalo na po sa kabataan na napakarami na po ngayon. Na last time I checked, more than 40% of our population belong to the youth sector, and maybe by now I'm not sure of the figures. I'm sure there are even more. So kung ano ang pangangailangan nyo, anong pangangailangan nila, it definitely has to be represented, but it has to be represented properly and responsibly.
Thank you so much, Dingdong, for that message. Dear listeners, so, compassion, creativity, commitment. You want to change the world, push it a little bit in the right direction. That's the formula. So thank you so much, Dingdong Dantes, for joining us and sharing your experiences in the National Youth Commission, far away from acting and directing. So dear listeners, you heard Dingdong Dantes, our special guest. This is Amina Rasul of the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy, saying goodbye to all of you and goodbye to Dingdong, and join us again next time. Bye, Dingdong, and thank you so much for joining us.
Maraming salamat po, and good day or good night to all of you.
She Talks Peace is brought to you in partnership with Podcast Network Asia and Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast. For more information, check out their website at podcastnetwork.asia and podmetrics.co.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Podcast Network Asia, the hosts of the program, or other programs of the network. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.